So welcome to God Talk. This is the second part of the video on Jesus' humanity or humanness. Um, last time we covered basically up to his when he just entered Nazareth after they left Egypt, and they made it back and they started a life in Nazareth. So basically, then until he was about 30, there's really nothing. There's only a couple episodes where events that is recorded, I believe. So let's start. Pardon me, this is not polished at all, and I just wanted to make sure I get this out. This is okay. So there's too much for a short video to cover this whole section. Okay, I basically stuck with Matthew, so I'll pick out not the miracles, not the teachings, but circumstances surrounding Jesus, like what happened around him on his human side. Now there might be a couple things that were kind of miraculous, but I put them in there for importance. Okay, so basically, let's start off with Jesus' crazy cousin. That's John the Baptist. So Matthew 3. In those days come John the Baptist preaching in the desert, saying, "Do penance, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand." Okay, that's quite a remarkable thing to say. All right. And John basically his garment was of camel's hair, and a leathern girdle about his loins, and the meat was as locusts and wild honey. So here he is in the desert, saying, "Do penance, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand," and he eats he doesn't have anything but a camel's hair, so not much attire, and he basically eats locusts and wild honey. Why wouldn't the people think he's crazy, right? However, he was of sound mind, and people were drawn to him, and this is Jesus' cousin. Continuing on, and they were baptized by him in the Jordan, confessing their sins. So we have this notion of baptism. So basically, the whole idea, they confessed their sins, and they went under water, or water was poured on them. Okay. So, and then he spoke out against the leading Jewish people, the people who knew the Jewish law, etc., the Pharisees and Sadducees. So he says, "Ye brood of vipers, who's shown you to flee from the wrath to come." So he's saying there's a wrath to come, okay? And he's outspoken here. Bring forth your fruit worthy of penance. And don't think yourselves, just because we're children of Abraham, we have it made. For God can make these stones and make them into children of Abraham. Then he's, if you don't yield good fruit, you're going to get cut down and cast in the fire. So I baptize you with water, but the person coming after me, referring to Jesus, who's mightier than I, whose shoes I am not worthy to bear, he baptized you in the Holy Ghost and fire. So we have the notion of the Holy Ghost. So we have now a Trinity thing going here. Whose fan is in the hand, and he will cleanse the floor, gathering the wheat into the barn, but chaff he will burn. So he's now talking about these notions of wheat and chaff. Chaff doesn't bear fruit, where the wheat bears fruit, in a sense. And so now we have sounds like we have a prophet going here. And then later on, we're going to skip. This is 14. So Jesus comes to him and saying, "I ought to be baptized by you, but yet you come to me." So that's what John said to Jesus. And then Jesus said, "Suffered to be so, for everything is fulfillment of all justice," and then he went ahead and did it. So then Jesus was baptized. Okay, so not everybody was getting baptized, but there were hordes of people getting baptized. So this is something new that's happening. After he was baptized, the heavens were opened to him, and he saw the Spirit of God descending as a dove coming upon him, and a voice from heaven saying, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." Again, Jesus he's just, how do you say it? This is going on around him, you know. So now I want to jump to Matthew 4. So something about Jesus must have been special, okay? So if you continue Jesus walked the Sea of Galilee, saw two brothers, Simon and Peter and Andrew. And then he said to him, come after me, I'll make you fishers of men. And they immediately left their nets and followed him. Something about him. Now, fishermen, they're not, they're salt of the earth. They're not going to be sold, snake oil. Pardon me, some people don't know the term snake oil salesman. Like, it's a false product. These, something about Jesus allowed them to just leave their nets. All right. And then the sons of Zebedee, James and John, they also left their nets. So you have these people just immediately being attracted to Jesus somehow. And then the 24, in his fame, so now Jesus is becoming famous. Okay, again, I omitted a ton of stuff, but it's for the purpose of seeing what's going on around Jesus. They presented to him sick people. So people are bringing sick people with all types of diverse diseases, torments. People were possessed. People who had mental health issues, palsy, like had difficult walking. And they started bringing people to him. Now think of something like that would happen nowadays. There's nothing like that. People don't bring people to be cured. And lots of them, okay? And all of a sudden you have the fame of being some type of cure person. The first thing would be we would be really on our guard, saying, "No, that's ridiculous." And so many people followed from Galilee, etc. So Matthew 7. Then the people talk about him having, when he was teaching, when they listened to him, he taught as someone with authority, with power, and not like the ordinary teachers of the scribes and the Pharisees of the Jewish law. So, but he had power and authority that came from him, and it's when you think about powerful speakers, you think about people like Hitler, for example, who in Germany won over many people. You think about people who have really are able to communicate really well. Okay, so that happens from time to time. You have really good speakers, and some people just fall for everything. Some people but some people So he had some power that's different. So again, Matthew 8, great multitudes following. So now he's growing. Multitudes are starting to follow him. So we don't have this nowadays. The only multitudes we have, for example, is a concert like Coachella or some type of concert, or you go to a show. That's where you see multitudes. Occasionally, like you have a parade and you have multitudes. Like you have someone in town. You start to have multitudes, but. And then and the next thing was a leper came up and adored him. Now people come up to him and adoring him, not just asking for a cure, but now they're adoring him, like getting on their knees and worshiping. Continue on with Matthew 8:5. Now. Not only do you have people, the regular people, so to speak, but now you have a centurion asking him to, let's continue on. The centurion said, Lord, my servant, this is 6, Matthew 8:6, and saying, Lord, my servant is home sick of palsy, and I'm grievously tormented. And Jesus said, I will come and heal him. And the centurion says, Lord, I'm not worried that you should enter under my roof. Only say the word, and my servant shall be healed. In other words, just say it, and he'll be cured. That is extraordinary. For I am a man subject to authority, having soldiers. So he reasons. So the centurion reasons out and explains why he has this faith. But just with from afar, the centurion. Now these are Roman centurion. He's in charge of I think it's 100 people. He is saying, please, just by your word, you will heal my servant. How extraordinary! That would never happen here. I mean, that's not normal. All right, so 23, and when he entered when he went to the boat, this is Matthew 23, there was a great tempest that arose in the sea. Now you got to understand, a lot of these guys are fishermen. They knew the sea. They knew it well. And there are not many of them we know that Peter was a swimmer. It's in the Bible if you want to find it. But not all of them maybe could swim, okay? But Peter could. So there was a tempest, so they thought they're going to get thrown over, and but Jesus was asleep. They went to wake him up. Lord, save us, or we'll perish. In other words, this is a real storm here, okay? And then Jesus said to him, "Why are you fearful? Don't you have any little faith?" Okay, so again, that's more spiritual. And then he said to the winds and sea, he commanded them, and there was a great calm. So you have this natural order, what they call natural order, of the sea and the wind and the storm, rain, or whatever. And this guy was able to just take care of it and calm it down. It's also very extraordinary. All right, so again, this is the human aspect. Obviously that's a miracle, but yeah. Then there were two that were possessed by devils, coming out of sepulchres, exceedingly fierce. Well, fierce, people who were obsessed were, and possessed, I would say not obsessed, but people possessed have extra strength, and they could maybe throw you, have just like extra strength, and there's a lot of things that, I'm not going to get into too much of it, but it's nasty. But they went, so that none could pass by that way. In other words, everybody tried to avoid those sepulchres because, those people would probably attack them. Okay, there's two of them, and they cried out, "What do we have to do with thee, Jesus, Son of God?" Again, how extraordinary. Now we're saying Jesus is the Son of God, and these are evil spirits. Okay? Are you come to torment? Are you coming to torment us before the time? Now there's something going on here. Again, this gets into spiritual stuff and times something in the future. But yeah. So even the possessed, the devils, those who were evil, recognized and called him the Son of God. And so basically there was a herd of swine feeding him. The devils decided, let's get us, we don't want to be, if you're going to cast us out of these two people, please put us in the swine, as pigs. And so the devils, now notice there's more than one here, send us in the herd. So he said, go. And they went out into the swine. But then after that, now this is the whole herd ran out down a steep place into the sea, and they perished. You had a whole herd of swine, pigs. Now you can understand pigs. Anyway, went out into the water, and they drowned. And they basically, the word got out, went into the city, and the whole city came out to meet Jesus because they said, you know what, this is too much for us. We'd like you to leave, please. Yeah, I won't go into anything else, but there's more to it than that. But anyway, so, and then in 9:18, we would speak. Behold, a certain ruler came up and adored him, a ruler. Again, we had a centurion. Now we have a ruler, and adored him. Someone got on his hands and adored him. How many people come up to you and get on their knees and adore you? It's unheard of. Lord, my daughter is even now dead, but come lay your hands upon her and she will live. I mean, what? He's not going to raise the dead? Wow, okay. So 927, two blind men out, crying out saying, have mercy on us, O son of David. A son of David is a title of a king. All right. So let's go into Matthew 14:1. At the time of the Tetrarch Herod heard about the fame of Jesus, so now he's becoming famous. Okay, are you famous? Most people, they have to be on TV to become famous or something, But he's getting famous now. People are talking about him, and so he said to his servants, "Is this John the Baptist risen from the dead?" Recall, Herod cut John the Baptist's head off, right? And now he's hearing about Jesus, and he thinks John the Baptist is risen from the dead to haunt him. So, but the point is, now Herod, who was the Roman king, if you will, put in place, and he's recognizing him. All right, so on a desert place. So this is the multiplication of loaves. But Jesus said to them, "You have no need to go. Give them to eat." He answered, "We have nothing here but 5 loaves and 2 fish." And then he said to them, "Bring them here." And then we had commanded the multitude to sit in the grass. Took 5 loaves and 2 fishes, and looked up and blessed and broke it, gave it to his disciples, and passed it out. They did all eat and were filled, and that remained were 12 baskets of fragments. Now this is a miracle. There's no way that some people pass it off like people sharing stuff, but no, I don't think so. Especially when you come down to 5,000 men, and that's not including men and women and children. Okay, so there's a miracle here, but it happened, and I believe they happened twice. But let's move on. Matthew 16:1. Now, again, the word's getting out. He's, people are falling all over the place. He's performing these miracles that people are saying, doing all these miracle stuff. And so, anyway, the Pharisees and Sadducees are starting to say, "Look, show us the sign from heaven. Show us one of your signs," And so even they are actually starting to say, "Look, he's supposed to be doing all these signs, but they're starting to see who he is." That's the point there. And then Matthew 20:30, 2 blind men sitting by the way, so heard Jesus pass. They cried out, "O Lord, thou son of David, have mercy on us." So again, people are acknowledging who he is. They don't, are you acknowledged as the daughter of God or the son of God? I don't think so. People, are you getting people, cripples following you? People who are can't walk, people can't see, people who are outcasts, like at that time leprosy. Are they coming up to you saying, have mercy on me? And that's it. No, they're not. It's just, this is unusual. This is again the human side. So Matthew 21:6, and the disciples going as Jesus commanded them, and they brought an ass in the colt. Oh yeah, okay. This is his entrance into Jerusalem, and laid their garments and made him sit there. So he's on a colt and he's got garments on him, and people spread their garments all along the way. Now Jerusalem, probably from a distance, that's a lot of garments, and when they say great multitude, that's a lot of people. We're talking lots of people. And they cut boughs from trees and strewed them in their way. So, how many people come, that you know of in life are, unless, they're hailing a king. We don't have many kings now. You have a leader, some fake, what do you call them? Feared leaders that they make people do that. But people are, and they're laying their garments on the way to just acknowledging. And let's go to 21:9. And the multitudes that went before and that cried out, say, Hosanna in the highest. Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he comes in the name of the Lord. Wow. So now he's making a grand entrance. Not his doing. He's just sitting on a colt. Everybody around the multitudes are doing this. Okay? How many So anybody, I mean, in a car or a horse or anything, people are shouting, "You're Son of David. You're basically God." No, it's not going to happen. So now you're starting to see that Jesus is just an unusual situation, just in the human aspect. And the people said, "This Jesus is a prophet from the son of from Nazareth." Jesus went to the temple of God and cast them all out. So this is now he's showing us a little bit of emotion here, but you got to keep in mind, people use this all the time. They say, "Oh, Jesus was angry and all that. He lost his temper." I'm not sure that's the case. I think this was very, this is where I'm going to go into what kind of what he talks about in his sermons, but slow to anger. You're supposed to be very slow to anger. Not only that, you're supposed to, anger is not, when you did if you're even angry at someone, remember when we talked about like murder, but he says even if you're angry at someone, that's not a good thing. So, yeah, he did cast them all out and sold it, with the tables, but I would believe that's controlled. If he was angry at all, he was controlled. It wasn't like he went nuts. And, yeah, so I think that gets misinterpreted a lot. But anyway, I'll let it go. But he did do that. Now now he starts to do this other thing, which he starts to predict the future. Again, this is more a miracle, but it's kind of it shows you that he's not the normal cat. He's not the normal guy. No one can predict the future. I mean, there's some exception. I'm not going to go that direction. Very extremely rare. So Matthew 26:3. Then we will gather the chief priests and ancients of the people in the court, and the high priest called Caiaphas, and they consulted together. They suddenly might apprehend Jesus and put him to death. So they're going to kill him. Okay. Now Jesus, in the first video, the part 1, we talked about Jesus was born. They already tried to kill him. So Jesus was already, everybody's going to die somehow, but not everybody gets killed, right? So Jesus was already he was going to be killed when he was born. So here it is. It's again trying to kill him. Why would they go? Why don't they leave the guy alone? That's what I don't get. These people. I don't get the people who they want miracles, they want prayers, whatever. But why would the chief priests and ancients care? Why would the Sadducees and the Pharisees care? Let the guy alone. Let him go do his thing in the desert and help people out. There's a reason, and the reason is fear. They were afraid. They were afraid of several things, but they were under Roman occupation. They were afraid, but they're also envious and a lot of things. So anyway, they consulted together. They want to put him to death. Okay. So there came a woman. Let's go to back to 26:7. There came a woman who had an alabaster box of precious ointment, poured it on his head as he was at the table. And then there was a little scuttlebutt among some of the people, and basically he says, she's doing this for my burial. And so he knows he's going to die soon, and that's one of those predictions. And then he gets into this again, Matthew 26:21, and he says, "I say to you, one of you is about to be. I'm sorry, one of you is about to betray me." How does he know that? He knows. Matter of fact, I didn't say this anywhere, but he knew he had the power to resurrect himself. Okay. So that's people don't think like that. They don't talk like that. But he said that. I forget. This is a shorter video. So, so one of you about to betray me, and then yada yada yada. 25, and Judas that betrayed him answered, said, "Is it I?" Rabbi, he says, "Yes, you said it. Yeah, so you're the betrayer." Um, Now, the thing about Judas, he could have come and asked for God's mercy. The problem is he did not. He took his own life. Uh, Jesus, God's infinitely merciful. That's the sad part. Judas could have asked for mercy, and he would have forgiven him. As bad as Judas was. But Jesus predicted that, he would not. He probably wouldn't. All right, next. I covered this in another video. While they were supper, they took bread, blessed it, broke it, and gave it to his wife. Said, "Take you. This is my body." Okay, now he's talking about something. What the heck? How is bread my body? I'm not going to get too much in it because this talks about this in another video that I did. So then he takes a towel and said, "Drink this. This is my blood." So that's a very unusual thing to say. How can someone have bread and wine be his body and blood? All right, so I talk more about it, but that's a kind of an odd thing. I don't think anybody else would do this. Say that. So Luke, I'm going to throw Luke in here. It's just because there's a reason for it. So Luke 18:4. Eventually, they came after Jesus. So that's what they call the Last Supper, and then next is. So Jesus went into the garden and then he basically was praying, and then then the next stage, what happens is they're going to arrest him in the garden. So eventually, or near the garden. So eventually they came after Jesus, and when they did, Jesus, knowing all things should come upon him, went forth saying, "Who do you seek?" Now, you're going to understand these are basically a band of soldiers, servants of the chief priests and Pharisees, with lanterns and torches and weapons. Okay, if you look down here, this is basically a band of soldiers. So, whom do you seek? So, that's who Jesus is talking with. And the answer said, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus said to him, "I am he." And then Judas also, who betrayed him, stood next to him. So they knew which one of the 12. It might have been dark. And as soon as they said this, as soon as Jesus said, "I am he," this is extraordinary. And most people don't talk about it. They went backward and fell to the ground. You got to understand, this is a band of soldiers and servants from the chief priests, the guards, if you will. And they have weapons. And there's a lot of them, right? So how many apostles? 12. So how many a band? Oh, we don't know. But maybe some people know, but they went backwards and fell to the ground. They were scared of Jesus. How many people? Again, these are soldiers. They're probably not weak. They're probably very strong, and that's why they're soldiers, right? And servants, and they were scared. So Jesus just said, "I'm he," and they. Again, how many people would that do it? I mean, you take, think of the biggest person ever is Andre the Giant, okay? Probably one of the biggest people ever. Well, we won't go there, but for recent times. If you had a band of soldiers with weapons, do you think they'd be scared of him? Do you think they'd fall backwards and fall to the ground? I don't think so. And I don't think Jesus was that big. Some say he was about around 6 feet, give or take. Okay, based on the shouted turn. So, yeah. So, again, this is happening around him. This is nothing he's doing. He did not command them to fall down, right? So, back to Matthew. So now the governor said to him, "What? Okay, so now they want the Jews got him. Jesus let them basically arrest him, brought him for fake trial, So, and then now they have to, because the Jewish cannot kill him because they're under Roman occupation. The governor, they want to go to the governor to kill him. Okay, so Pontius Pilate, I believe, is the governor. So why? What evil has he done? So they're bringing him. They're bringing him to be. They want to see him crucified. They want him to die. The chief priests and all those people. And Pilate, who was the governor, said, seeing that he prevailed nothing, rather he didn't. But rather a tumult was made. Taking water, washed his hands. Okay, so in other words, he didn't see what the problem was. He again, this is these are the other aspects of the Bible when they talk about this, but basically Pilate found nothing wrong with Jesus, that he was completely innocent. So even Pilate, who was the governor, saying, I am innocent of the blood of this just man. In other words, he's going to allow the Jewish people to get their way, right? The Pharisees, the Sadducees, etc. But he's saying, I'm innocent of this man's blood. I mean, that's extraordinary. So Pilate, because maybe he wanted to make sure, he wanted to keep the peace, basically. He was afraid that, again, fear's a big problem sometimes. And Sonia's, I'm innocent of the blood of this just man. You look to it. And the people said, his blood be upon us and our children. So anyway, going to Matthew 27:51. Behold, the veil of the temple was rent from two. So this is when he died, when Jesus was crucified. I had to omit so much. The veil of the temple is a very hardy cloth. If you do research on it, it doesn't just tear. It's made of it's a very strong cloth, and it was rent in two from top to bottom. The earth quaked and the rocks were split. Okay, so this is what happened, when Jesus died, and this is what people witnessed. How many times does that happen when you've been to a funeral? Like, there's an earthquake, the rocks split in half. Let's go further. And the graves were open, and many bodies of the saints that had slept arose. And coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, came into the holy city and appeared to many. So let's do that. So the graves were open. So you have it's like not the living dead. You got all these people, except these people are sane. They're normal. They're coming after and coming out of the tombs after it, and they went into the Jerusalem, the holy city, and appeared to many. Unbelievable. Now here's the centurion. When he passed, when they saw watching Jesus, now the centurion and they that were with him watching Jesus, having seen the earthquake, and I would imagine felt it, and the things that were done all around, they were afraid, and they said, indeed, this was the Son of God. Now you're gonna, I don't know so Longinus was the one who stabbed him, right? So because Jesus was already dead, and they wanted to make sure he was dead, so they took a lance, a sword, and pierced him. Well, Longinus actually converted, and he was a martyr. Anyway, just a side note. Matthew 27:64. Now, this is what they call stubbornness. Even that was not enough. There's a great line in Jesus of Nazareth when the centurion says, "How is it, you people? Isn't his death enough? He's dead. Why bother the guy?" It's a great scene. So anyway, the chief priest command therefore that the sepulchre be guarded until the third day. lest perhaps his disciples come and steal him away and say to the people he's risen from the dead. So, again, that's not unreasonable. Let's say, okay, yeah, his disciples might come and steal, but you'll see this. It's really difficult. So let's just place a guard in front of it, for just for 3 days. So Pilate said to him, "You'll have a guard. Go. You guard it as you know. So go ahead." And so the sixth, Matthew 66, and they departed, making the sepulchre sure, and they sealed the stone. In other words, it wasn't just a stone rolled over; they sealed it. Okay, with some type of a sealer, and they set guards in front of him. So not only was Jesus in the tomb, like why make all this fuss? He's dead. They made the sepulchre sure. They made sure it didn't move, and they sealed the stone with a sealer, and they put guards in front of it. Okay, so this is so they thought the disciples would, blah blah blah, come take them out. To Matthew 28:2. And behold, there was a great earthquake. We got another earthquake going, and the angel of ports descended from heaven, coming, rolled back the stone and sat upon it. And his countenance was like lightning and raiment like snow. But more importantly, when the guards saw him, all right, they were fear of him, and the guards were struck with terror and became like dead men. Okay, and later on we know that the guards went to the Jewish chief priests, and basically they were paid off, saying that don't tell anybody what you saw. Okay. Now last one on the thing, and there's so much more, but anyway, I gotta go, and this thing's gonna be shorter. Luke 23:38, and there was a superscription written over him in the letters in Greek, Latin, and Hebrew, "This is the King of the Jews." Now, this goes along with the part one, that Jesus was the King of the Jews, and now he actually has it written. In life, we things happen to us we can't explain, and Jesus was he couldn't have done it. He couldn't have, he didn't write it, right? It's just how things happen according to God's providence, if you will. So this is the King of the Jews. Now, the reason why this is interesting is the Greek, Latin, and Hebrew. Greek, Latin, and Hebrew, when you listen to authentic exorcists, and they still exist, for those who don't know, they exist, and they're, for those who, the whole idea of possession is very rare, very, very rare. Maybe something like 5% of the exorcist cases are authentic, but they are authentic. What the exorcists say is, when you're using Greek, Latin, and Hebrew, it's more effective. And then sometimes the person being exorcised will speak in Greek, Latin, or Hebrew without ever knowing the language. Okay, so when the devils were shouting out to Jesus, "What will you have us of us?" It still goes on. And the exorcist has to, usually it's a Catholic priest, or a priest, maybe Orthodox priest, that has to get rid of him with certain prayers. And so anyway, it's a side note here, but Greek, Latin, and Hebrew were spoken at the time. This is the King of the Jews. Okay, so there's so much more could have been said. There's so much more about his humanity, but given the time, I hope you enjoyed the video.